SB 147 heads of the Pennsylvania Senate, and California somewhat surreptitiously bans trapping. I'm Brian McLaughlin, and I'm here with Brendan Ryle, Brandon Baker, and Nolan Duncan. This is Heirs Podcast. So anyways, we covered Sunday hunting to a large degree in the last time we had a podcast. So I really don't want to go over what we already went over, but I just wanted to say that the Sunday hunting proposal that would allow us to hunt for 3 days, one in archery season, one Sunday in rifle season, and another dictated by the Pennsylvania Game Commission is going to the Pennsylvania Senate tomorrow, September 10th, 2019. And I just wanted to ask y'all, what do you think is going to happen?
I think it's going to be total chaos. I think for the numerous times in a row now, it's going to be completely shut down again.
Yeah, personally, I'm split 50-50 between the two, whether I'm for it or against. I mean, I am for it because I understand that, people do need to spend, a little more time out in the woods to probably help license sales, which in my opinion is the only reason that the Game Commission is even considering doing such. But I would say the likelihood of it actually getting passed is slim to none.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what we're seeing, it's pretty much the way it is. If we don't get the Farm Bureau on board, then it's probably not going to happen. But regardless, we're going to be updating you, regardless if it's on a podcast or if we just do it on our social media. We'll be letting you know what happens in Harrisburg tomorrow. But now we're going to go to our main thing we're going to be talking about today. California bans trapping. It really didn't get any news coverage at all, and which is a real problem for us hunters and trappers. We really don't have, there's so many other things that you can talk about on the news besides someone banning trapping, especially California, because California is always on just a tirade trying to ban all the things that they don't like, and this is just another, basically casualty of that. So I didn't want to be partial. I didn't use Fox News. I used the LA Times. And this is where we're getting our data. This was September 4th. And basically, they passed the Wildlife Protection Act, sounds great, of 2019, signed in by Governor Gavin Newsom, known communist, on Wednesday, that prohibits the commercial or recreational trapping on both public and private land. So there is no trapping to be allowed in California. And essentially, their whole thing was that the trappers, that basically 133, I think, trappers that still actually trap in California, all the way up in the north, obviously not in the Bay Area, they can't afford to pay for the costs associated with keeping trapping legal. And I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think? Why do you think that is? What costs could be associated with trapping that would make the trappers unable to pay for it? I mean, aren't you just buying something and then going out and trapping and selling the furs like everyone else does?
Well, absolutely. That's the first general idea that you would think. My personal opinion is California has taken it to the extremes of making it so that it is unaffordable for the common Joe to go out there and trap, like we would here in Pennsylvania or even Ohio, West Virginia. It's just so many different laws that have been passed. Like, for instance, I know in Seattle or Washington in general, they outlawed the use of foothold traps, and you had to switch, if you're a canine trapper, all over to box traps. So that in itself is a great expense that you would have to incur. And that being said, I mean, I can understand how they're trying to do this.
Right, and it also mentions there's actually a legislation trail. A guy found a bobcat trap on a property that someone wasn't allowed to trap on in 2013, and that started a movement that actually banned bobcat trapping, commercial bobcat trapping in California. So obviously, we can't assume that wasn't the only thing that they did previously to 2019.
And the fact that it was so easy as to a one-time occurrence of there being that trap on that land led to it completely being a protected fur bearer in the state of California. That just shows you how like-minded these people are and how ridiculous they're actually being towards the fur and trapping industry and following.
Right, it's a very anecdotal incident that led to a banning of a complete activity. Additionally, this Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, basically what her argument is that trapping is especially cruel, obviously, in her opinion, and it's unnecessary and costly. So I just wanted you to maybe expand on if it is or is not cruel, obviously, as she says. So is trapping cruel?
Absolutely not. I mean, they've taken such careful measures over the years to make sure that traps in general don't don't hurt the animal whatsoever. I mean, any day of the week, any trap that I own personally that I use in this state, I will stick my hand in just for the simple fact that it will not hurt you. It does not break bones, it does not tear ligaments, it doesn't hurt you at all. I mean, just the simple fact that they go to the lengths of using rubber jaws or offset jaws to prevent that kind of thing from happening, I'd say that's completely bogus and just foolish of her to even consider saying such.
So you're saying her assertions are basically unfounded, and it's just her opinion, probably what she's seen in a PETA commercial or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, it says there's been a real change in attitudes about how we treat animals because additionally, they also ban the sale of all fur products, including fur coats, regardless of trapping or not, and to outlaw the use of animals in any circus in the state except for domesticated dogs, horses, and cats. So we all know basically about how Southern California runs the entire state, and this is just another thing that they want to continue to disallow people to do because they don't like it. So they said. So we already agreed. It came to a consensus that it isn't inhumane. You say that it is not inhumane.
Absolutely, it's not.
Okay, because you have to check the traps in Pennsylvania every 24 hours, or else you can actually be fined. And so that's.
I believe it's a little bit longer than 24 hours, but any ethical trapper is going to be out there at a certain time pretty much every day. I mean, I start my line every morning at around 7 to 7:30. I mean, I don't miss it. I'm there every day. That's just the mindset of the people that are doing this as an activity. That's just, they're responsible, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that there's unresponsible people out there that are not going to, but there's definitely rules and guidelines for that.
That's with any activity, regardless if it's outdoor activity or not.
Right, correct.
Right. And I feel like that's the most honorable way to approach it. Like, I don't think any responsible hunter is going to want to see an animal just suffer and like just be out there unnecessarily. It's our duty to just like, cherish our harvest as much as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
As soon as possible.
Absolutely. And like, I mean, there's times where, say, I personally have the time, I'll go out a second time in the evening and recheck that trap that I just checked not even 8 hours ago, just for the fact of being ethical about the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I find that is disturbing in this whole thing is they're kind of painting hunters and outdoorsmen in California as like a boogeyman, like, oh my goodness, they're hurting the animals and everything. And that's that's their argument for the most part. But in the grand aspect of things, I really hope that Californian hunters and outdoorsmen can just really look at their state and say, this is a problem. If they're like willing to take a liberty away from us that has been literally a thing since like the ancient times, then what is to say that they won't go more than this? Like what's to say that they aren't going to take more and more liberties away?
Right.
And
the reason that it applies here is because if one state can ban trapping, there's nothing stopping California from using the same logic to ban hunting. And if that's a precedent in a certain state, it could easily come to other states, including Pennsylvania, which is where most of us are. So that's basically what is stopping them. Do you think that they'll actually go after hunting eventually, guys?
Oh, absolutely. I do believe they will. And back to the point that she had made, what's her name? Gonzalez had made about the treatment of animals is very poorly. I think what they do a lot is they stand on the graves of a few animals that were treated poorly by people that are not in the same mindset as we are. Anyone that knows us or any other true sportsman or outdoorsman, hunter, fish, or trapper actually puts more time, effort, and energy into preserving wildlife than pretty much any other organization. I mean, all the way up from the money that you're spending on hunting, population control. People, a lot of these, I don't know what to refer to them as, antis, if you would. Their belief is just let all these animals run wild, and then if you really look into it, well, then you have all these animals everywhere. You have no one doing population control. You have diseases spread between the animals. Mange is a big thing with the coyotes and the foxes and the bobcats. And then you get into deer, you get EHD and CWD. And then you have an overpopulation of these animals. And then you get into bigger places like Pittsburgh, for example, where just living in the city of Pittsburgh, your insurance rate goes up because of the likelihood of hitting a deer. And it's I would like to compare Pittsburgh almost to Southern California as far as the type of people that live there that will not let you hunt on their property, but they're the first ones to complain about there being an overabundance of a particular animal, whether it be a fox or a coyote or a deer, anything. And that's what they do. They in their minds, they're really doing something for wildlife by completely restricting us from harvesting them. And whether they don't want to realize it or whether they just, are clueless, they're actually doing these animals more harm than good. Hunters as a whole do more to preserve wildlife than any other organization.
Yes. Right, exactly. And even like when you say that, a lot of car accidents will happen, especially to these animals being out there, then there's not only like a monetary cost to the people who don't engage in the activities that we do, but there's also a human toll there. Like how many people die through car wrecks involving deer a year in every state. That's a good point to bring up. Additionally, this lady, she said that trapped animals are strangled, shot, or beaten to death with care taken not to damage the pelts before skinning them. So what this implies is that we, trappers put these animals through a lot more pain than necessary just to prevent the pelts from being damaged. And, I trap too. We know this not to be true. Can you please explain for people who don't know how an animal is dispatched?
I'm going to take you back to the strangled part that she said. If California does allow the use of a quote-unquote snare, I would almost be willing to wager a week's salary on it.
How they are.
That they are using what are commonly more referred to as cable restraints, and that is specifically a device put in place so that these animals do not get strangled. They have what's known as a relaxing lock on them that does not allow that cable to actually sit there and get tighter and tighter. As the animal releases itself and starts to relax, hence the term relaxing lock, it will actually loosen up to the point where they are fine and dandy just sitting there being themselves. But ethically speaking, the dispatch of an animal is very smooth. I mean, depending on what your particular method is, there's no suffering involved whatsoever. I mean, I'm not going to say whatsoever altogether, but genuinely speaking, dispatching goes very quick, very efficiently, and there's no suffering usually whatsoever.
Hold on, Brandon. Let's talk about it for a second. How many times just this year alone did we walk up on raccoons or coyotes or foxes in a trap that were actually sleeping while they were in these traps?
Absolutely. I mean, countless times I've walked up, and raccoons are a great example. You walk up to a raccoon, it actually has its head tucked down between its legs, and it's sitting there taking a nap. It has no idea what's going on. An animal, if it's to the point where it is suffering, and you're going to tell me that it's suffering but it's sleeping, that's just completely ludicrous.
That doesn't really make sense. And additionally, if you guys didn't know, Baker and Brendan's dad are arguably one of the best pairs of trappers, especially in PA that I've seen. Every day they're pulling, at least one fox or coyote, multiple coons, and when it comes to beaver season, they absolutely slay them in an area that doesn't really have as high levels as others. So this year, obviously, he's going to be a part of our trapping team. I was going to do trapping demos, but he took the reins and he really wants to do it, and it'll be a lot better footage. And we can, if you want to, let us know in the comments. We can even show you how to dispatch an animal and how quick and painless it is, and maybe we can send it to Miss Gonzalez, so we could do that. But probably most obviously you can figure it out. We'll use a 22. And you put around right through the head, it's over very quickly. So there's really no, like they say here, they're shot or beaten to death. Like it's this terrible thing.
They make it out to be very macabre.
Even the humane societies that have to put down dogs do it exactly like that. So it's not inhumane. It's a common thing, and it's nothing new. They're trying to make it so it's like this terrible.
Even some people even prefer the method of a clean shot right through the lungs, and I've personally seen this done, and it is over literally within 2 to 3 seconds. The animal is completely dispatched and completely painlessly put out of its life.
If you hit a skunk in both lungs, then it can't use that air to push out whatever the smelly stuff is. But I tried it and it didn't work for me. Does it ever work for you?
Fortunately, I have never actually caught a skunk, and I hope to keep that track record going because it's something I really don't want to have to deal with.
Mhm.
But if it happens, it happens. We're gonna find out one way or another.
Yeah, Brendan, you remember that one I caught, the first one I caught? I brought it over. I told you, I'm like, dude, this smells bad, and I brought it over. He didn't believe me.
That was the worst smelling skunk I've ever smelled in my life.
It was
bet
unnatural.
my pickup smelled like it for 2 months.
It was unnatural. It was absolutely terrible.
Believe me, it's a lot different once you actually get into it. You start to smell these different smells, and the skunk essence is probably one of the most horrific smells that you could ever get to when you're that close and personal with it.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. All right, one last thing I want to kind of get to with this, unless I see you pulled something else up, Nolan. But the last thing that they say in this article is the signing of this bill into law is the result of compelling data and a change of heart in public opinion regarding animal cruelty. And I looked at this data. I don't actually see anything compelling when it comes to animal cruelty. And I just wanted to know what you thought about it when it comes to is the state justified in banning trapping even if there's only 133 people in there?
Absolutely not, because that's 133 people that no longer get to do an activity that they love anymore.
Mhm.
What gives them the right to take something that's been around since possibly well before the 16th century, but definitely known as the 16th century, and just say, hey, you can't do this anymore because we don't feel that it's right? What gives them that right to do that to even those 133 people? That might not be a big number to some, but to the rest, that's more than enough. One person would be enough.
Yeah, let me just interject with this. Like, I'm actually on Fox News right now, and it's protected by NewsGuard. Like, you know, you could always say bias is bias, but I feel like Fox News can be credible to the max in many cases. But according to this article, it's saying like there were 1,568 animals harvested in 2018, and there was a sale of 1,241 pelts. You know, those pelts cost money. You know, these people are selling this stuff as a lifestyle, and you're taking that money away from them. It's basically just an assault on their lifestyles at that point.
Absolutely, it is. And unfortunately, with the way that the fur market currently is, you have much more time and effort put into actually preparing that pelt for auction than you actually get in return for it once it actually sells. I mean, that might not be the case with them, but in this state, that's how I see it going, and that's how it was for us last year.
Oh, yeah. My dad in the 80s said they used to be able to sell like a XXL coon for like $20 or something like that in the 80s. And now I'm lucky to get 10 out of a XXL.
Not even, going back 10 or 15 years now, there was beaver pelts that commonly sold for $60 to $80 range. I mean, and I think we were lucky to get maybe $15 for our best beavers last year. It's unfortunate that the market's the way it is right now, but like most anything, it fluctuates. It's going to come back up at some point, and
Red fox pelts used to go $70, $80. If you can sell them for $1 now, you're lucky.
Yeah, most people don't even want the red foxes anymore. The only high target fur pelts anymore are really bobcat and gray fox.
Yep.
And essentially, like, what we came down to is also population control too. So like I would be interested, even though there isn't a lot of animals being taken in California, how that affects the populations of the animals that they mention.
Well, I can personally tell you, especially out west, whether you're talking California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Nevada, any of those western states are so heavily populated with coyotes.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Spending a lot of years out in the state of Washington, it'd be nothing to be, on the inner city, Federal Way, and that's a pretty happening place. There's a lot of people, big population there, or even closer to Seattle or Tacoma, and you're sitting on your back porch and there's a 5-acre parcel of woods between one apartment complex and the next, and it was nothing to see 10 coyotes every morning, and that's too many. That's just too many.
And that leads me to like what this article was also saying. It says, but other groups, including the California Farm Bureau Federation, oppose the bill, arguing ranchers and farmers hire commercial trappers to control wildlife and protect their crops. So like you're going to see a major population spike throughout these years. These poor people that are in rural communities are not going to have the easy ability of just trapping. They're going to have to hire someone to physically go hunting, and that could be a little harder.
Well, yeah, it's just these out of touch, people in the urban areas like who think it's a good idea to ban plastic straws wrapped in paper for paper straws wrapped in plastic. I don't really see that. Like they don't know what they're doing to these other people, and I
No,
foresee
they're clueless.
lawsuits, and I'm interested in them.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should really, like, if California really wants to fix their state, why don't they fix the poverty and the homelessness that are happening in their inner cities? Like,
Yeah.
San Francisco is a literal poop hole.
Yeah, they have a poop map. Go check it out, guys. Go Google San Francisco poop map.
Yeah, and
You'll be very
and Skid Row
amused.
in Los Angeles is such a disaster right now. They're even talking about the bubonic plague making a comeback, and that, the United States, air travel is a thing, and that could spread throughout the country, if not the world, in a matter of hours,
Right.
if that's not controlled. California needs to get their act together, and this is honestly putting all this effort into the trapping community is a travesty.
Yeah, good job, guys. Yeah, you're really hitting the good nails on the heads. Really taking care of business over there in California.
Another thing, I'd like to make one more point, personally here. As far as population control, back on that subject, I don't think people realize, particularly bobcats, when you get a really overpopulation of bobcats, coyotes too, but not quite as bad. A bobcat, it's not a terribly big creature. We're talking 40 pounds or less. But I personally know a man that was mauled by a bobcat, and that will happen. And let's take for example, up in Washington back, I was say early 2000s, there were mountain lions. The state of Washington had overnight banned the harvesting of mountain lions with using hound dogs to run them down, to track them down, to shoot them. And meanwhile, this is going on, and miles up the road from where I live, there are mountain lions jumping out of trees on playgrounds during recess at elementary schools and killing kids. And the antis were more concerned with, let's protect the mountain lions from getting chased by hound dogs because it's inhumane and that's cruel, and they were putting these animals' lives up higher on a more important level than human life. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot of that in California with the mass population of bobcats that's going to become, because bobcat is an aggressive animal. It will attack a grown human being. Now the coyotes will also do that, but they're probably going to lean more towards smaller children, which is just as bad,
if not worse.
if not worse.
I'm looking at right now at a laundry list of people killed by mountain lions over the past few years. A lot of these people, 3-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 5-year-old, 18, 17, 40. And also I actually the coyotes are known to kill a lot of like house cats and dogs and everything like that too. So if they don't even have, like, if they keep going how they're going over there, if they even start banning hunting, especially with cows and stuff like that, there's going to be a lot of that happening too, and they might actually start caring. But they won't really
Well, I
realize
hope
what they've
Miss
done.
Gonzalez keeps her nice little lap dog inside for now.
Yeah,
It might be helpful for
teacup
her.
Pomeranian in the purse.
Absolutely.
Anyways, guys, is there anything else you want to say about this Cali ban on trapping?
All I have to say is, California, get your act together, please, because
Absolutely.
that's whole agenda spreads like a disease, and people in other states are going to like start looking at that, and like, I don't want to, like, it is a liberal agenda. I just hope that these don't spread to Idaho or Texas, because they're going to have a hard time with the people over there. California might be able to, the people in California might be pushed over by this kind of thing, but you better not expect to come here with Pennsylvania with that bull crap.
Oh yeah, it's definitely an attack on individual liberties, and if you do it in PA, it's not going to happen. But
No,
it just
absolutely
disheartens
not.
me to see this happen even here. So, all right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe on our YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. Let us know how we did in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
God bless America.